contact. The STIs that we want to be aware of are herpes, HPV, or human papillomavirus, as well as syphilis. And then for those body fluids, the others, chlamydia, gonorrhea, hepatitis A, B, and C, herpes, HIV, and trichomoniasis.
Really quickly, so on the subject of trick, a lot of people don't test for trick, and for persons with vaginas, we do see trichomoniasis show up quite a bit more frequently. So if you are dealing with people who have vaginas who are in the process of getting tested, make sure that they're asking about everything else, including trichomoniasis, because sometimes it's left off of the battery of testing.
In all honesty, sometimes HIV is left off of battery of testing. In the state of Texas, it's not an automatic test that's ordered when you go in for STIs, at all places when you go in for STIs. There was an attempt to change that with legislation this year. Unfortunately, it did not pass our wonderful Senate in Texas, but be sure that you ask specifically for what test you want. Because if you tell them, I want full STI testing, they may just do gonorrhea, chlamydia, they may just do syphilis. So be specific whenever you do go in for testing.
So can someone tell me what is sex?
Fun.
Yeah.
Subjective pleasure.
Subjective, it's pleasure. If you ask someone, are you having sex, what are you asking? What are you asking? Are you having sex? What are you asking your kids when you ask them that?
Emotion. It's emotion, yeah.
Okay.
Give a part of yourself.
Contact, all right.
Intercourse.
Intercourse, what else?
Emotion.
Okay. What are the types of sex that we typically say we have?
Oral.
Oral?
Anal, vaginal.
Anal, vaginal. What's the one that we miss a lot?
Intimacy. Foreplay.
Digital sex, right?
Digital.
Because what we do know is that you still, if someone has warts or anything on their fingers, that you still can pass that with digital play, right? So we have to ask and be very specific when we're talking to our kids, are you having sex? No, what type of sex are you having is the question that you really want to ask.
Including the usage of toys, you can also transmit STIs while you're using toys, double-sided dildos, etc.
So yeah, when it comes to toys, cleaning them is vital. And if you're sharing toys, using condoms on toys even, that you change out after each person has used it. We'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second. So here's our next honestly moment. I know I should get tested, but honestly, I'm afraid to find out. And I can speak from experience. This was my reason for delaying my very first HIV STI testing when I was in undergrad, when I was in college. I definitely should have been tested much sooner than I was, but I was afraid to find out because I knew that as a gay Latino male, at that point it felt like HIV would be inevitable for me. So there was that fear, and I think that still exists for a lot of folks. But testing is that key entry point into either prevention or treatment. We don't know our status of STIs or HIV without getting tested. So it's important that we begin to have those conversations about normalizing testing. Everyone that is sexually active should be getting tested at least once annually. If you have multiple partners, definitely more frequently. You know, I think as we'll talk about PrEP or pre-exposure prophylaxis in a bit, that also comes with regular testing every 3 months. So having those conversations about how often folks should be getting tested. And testing is easy to access now for quite a few folks. I'll say that there are still folks that unfortunately aren't able to access services equitably, but we have so many options for testing. So you can get tested at a clinic, such as Nelson Thibodeau that Resource Center has. You can go to your doctor's office, you can go to the health department. We have rapid tests specifically for HIV that you can also get done out at the bar, out at the club, out at a clinic that gives you that HIV result, typically in under 15, 20 minutes. There's also a rapid syphilis test. With that, if you're getting a rapid syphilis test, know that if you've ever had syphilis, that rapid test is going to come back reactive. It doesn't mean that you have an active case of syphilis, but you want to be aware of that if you have had a history of syphilis, that you get a blood draw instead of that rapid test. And then we also have at-home test kits now, specifically for HIV. Those are, from some organizations, free of charge. If you go into like CVS or Walgreens, around what, 50, 60 bucks still?
50, 60.
So take advantage of your community resources. I imagine that most, if not all in here, are tax-paying citizens, and that is what that funding comes from. Like, you are paying for these services already as a citizen. So take advantage of testing, take advantage of free condoms and lube and all these services that our clinics and communities provide. And know that, especially with at-home tests, those results aren't always 100% accurate. So particularly with an HIV at-home test, regardless of that result, I would recommend that you still get a follow-up test, either with a community clinic, with your doctor, somewhere that can do a blood draw and confirm those results, whether it's negative or positive. So what tests do we need for certain STIs? You know, so Trina talked about having those conversations around what type of sex you're having. Are you having vaginal sex, anal sex, oral sex, digital sex? And this just gives us an idea of what particular tests can be used to test for various STIs. So we'll start with visual exam. Under that we see HPV, human papillomavirus, that can cause genital warts. That is usually diagnosed by a visual exam. Even though there's not a check by it, herpes is sometimes diagnosed by a visual exam as well. As a matter of fact, I know at least a lot of providers here in Dallas don't necessarily test for herpes. They will wait until there's an active outbreak to be able to diagnose it visually. But as we'll see here in a second, you can do other tests for herpes. Under urine sample, we see chlamydia, gonorrhea, and trichomoniasis. But again, let's remember what types of sex you're having. If you are the insertive partner and you have a penis, or if you are the receptive vaginal partner, yeah, that urine test is probably going to catch gonorrhea and chlamydia. But if you're engaging in condomless oral sex, if you're engaging in condomless anal sex, then you also need to be getting a swab for chlamydia and gonorrhea. If you're using it, it should be swabbed.
Yes.
Back, if you tap the back of your throat. Tap yours real quick, how you just doing it.
That was Bam Ebony.
So, the
icon.
Another swab, again, chlamydia, gonorrhea, depending on if it's a rectal swab or a throat swab. We can also swab an active outbreak of herpes to test for cervical and anal cancers caused by HPV. That can also be tested with the swab. And then trichomoniasis, again, in addition to urine samples, can be swabbed. Then switching over to blood testing, or finger stick for hepatitis A, B, and C, herpes, HIV, and syphilis. And then lastly, we talked about those fluids that transmit STIs. Even though saliva doesn't transmit HIV, we can actually use a saliva sample or a swab to do one of those rapid HIV tests. Your at-home tests are going to be an oral test.
So, for people you just said about herpes, are you saying that you can actually test for herpes without it being active?
So there is a blood test. You can get your blood drawn to test for herpes. Most providers just don't order it or use it. I think it's a relatively expensive lab to order, and a lot of insurance companies don't necessarily cover it at 100% kind of thing. But yeah, you can do a blood draw or a blood test, and then you can just do a swab or a visual exam of an active outbreak. Any other thoughts, questions on STIs or anything we've talked about so far?
What's the number one common symptom of an STI?
No symptom.
No symptoms at all.
Sometimes none.
Usually that. And so I like to tell, especially I work with young people a lot of times, we've gotten away from foreplay, right? So our foreplay, I'm on this foreplay. So our foreplay for checking for STIs is our own visual exam, right? So we need to be able to look at it. We need to be able to smell it, right? We don't want to taste it before we can smell it. Y'all with me?
Y'all, we at church, boy.
Because once you taste it,
That's not church.
There, then what happens?
It's too late.
And that's a really great point. So can you say that louder for folks?
Some folks like that dirty smell.
So we have a phrase in HIV prevention and work that says, "Don't yuck my yum," meaning just because you don't like it doesn't mean I can't, and don't judge me for it, don't shame me for it. So like you said, some folks like that smells,
baby,
or,
it's pink.
yeah, exactly. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, that's fine.
Smell it and look at it.
Right.
There is a difference though between must or musty and sour.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we wanna.
But
Mercy.
it's important to be aware.
Sour woke me up.
I don't eat no pussy
Y'all
too.
had that.
Yes.
So the last thing about testing and results is that most folks these days won't give you results over the phone. When I was overseeing a testing program, we had a rule of thumb to not give results regardless of the status, to not give them over the phone because one, it's hard to always confirm that you're talking to that person. And two, if it's a reactive result, that's not necessarily something you just want to hear over the phone, right? I mean, especially if it's an HIV diagnosis. While STIs, some are curable, most are treatable, that's still news that you don't necessarily want to get alone or over the phone. So you'll either get results back in person, perhaps through a patient portal. It used to be that a lot of folks would say no news is good news. I think that's crap. I think any news is good news because, again, you have to know your status and your results in order to figure out what your next step is, whether that's prevention or treatment of those STIs.
All right. This says, honestly, we've been together for a while, so getting tested never really crossed my mind. Think about the first time you got tested or screened. Why? What crossed your mind?
I ain't trust that.
Or think about the time that you should have gone and gotten screened, but you didn't. Right? Now think about the young people you work with, or your kids and your houses, and how many times they chose you. No, I didn't want to do it because of X, Y, and Z. What are we going to do to encourage them, to empower them? Because we know we are living in times where all STIs are manageable, but now we have to think about treatment and we have to think about other options, right? So, so sexual health is more than just about you. I'm not moving around.
Oh no, you can move around.
All right,
I
so
got you.
when we talk about sex, we all know that we all have a sexual network. Do y'all remember MySpace?
Oh yeah.
It's a black button and we hit that.
We MySpace. So when we think about social media is a network of collective people that we know together, right? So it's the same thing when we think about our sexual networks. Those are people that we have in common. If some of us open our apps up right now, there's a sexual network probably in this room. Okay, right. And so we have to think about, especially this weekend, how close-knit the sexual network may be. Right? And what are those opportunities when we talk about sexual health and prevention, right? So, so there are multiple factors that really could put us at vulnerability to STIs. Yeah, it's about who you have sex with. It's about where we're having sex on our body. But most importantly, it is our jurisdiction of where we're having sex, where we live, our zip code. Shout out to our zip codes.
75226, 75215,
75217.
75211.
All those Dallas zip codes that you heard are high prevalence areas.
Right. So now we have to think about the prevalence, right, and our network and our opportunities. And I have to say this other thing too. When we think about all of this melanin in the room, typically, melanated folks have sex with other melanated folks. So then our pool, I mean, you like what you like. I like spices too. But my primary spice is gonna be pepper. Okay? So we have to think about when we are having sex with each other, then that really increases our vulnerabilities because we're not getting screened as often. You want to say something?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I just was saying my zip code ain't hot, so I'm Gucci about it.
Ain't you in Baltimore?
Those things.
I'm like, ain't you in Baltimore?
Yeah, it's, but you gotta be, like you said, you gotta know your jurisdiction.
Oh, that's
You
right.
gotta know your zip code.
But then also we have to know
Well, I know mine.
where we live,
I have to wrap it
where
up.
we play,
Worship and love.
worship and love, right? So all of those things are so important. Because we do worship and love in the same place sometimes. My body is the worship.
Oh,
Right, Trina.
The other thing we say, honestly, we should have used a condom, but shit, we got distracted. I was like, the thing was feeling good on my neck, right? All you had to do was have that little one extra shot. Right? All of the, right. Some of y'all probably got it in the bag right now, right? So we just have to think about what gets us excited, what gets us for those opportunities to be like, maybe not right now. And I don't want to say that condoms are not for everybody.
Let's talk about it.
Condoms are not for everybody. Okay? Blake gonna talk about that.
I'm gonna just say, we have to understand that for many of us who are having sex, there is a real relationship to come. And there is a desire to, whether it be to want to have a child, to want to be closer for intimacy, just because you like the taste, smell, feel, or touch of how it feels inside of your body, we have to validate that people like nut. And so whether we should have used a condom or not is kind of irrelevant, but we should understand why condoms are important for other aspects of sex. We don't want to demonize people who don't choose to use condoms.
Period. But let me say something. So yeah, condoms are can be an important factor, but let me tell you, ain't nothing like getting in something that is good and wet.
Talk about it.
Right? So when we say things that go in pairs, we talk about peanut butter and jelly, salt and pepper. We also can say condoms and lube, right? So it's really important that lube should be a part of your sexual health, all right? Because if we're not using lube in certain places and we have those micro tears, ain't nothing like having a tear.
Come on.
Okay. Wherever you can get your tears. Even if it's in the crack of your mouth, right?
Or the crack one.
Crack of the mouth.
Because James just brought it up, we used to talk about the different types of lube. So you want to be, if you are using condoms, aware of what type of lubricant you want to use. You generally want to use a water-based lubricant. If you are using silicone-based lubricants, I will remind you to not have your good sheets down because that handprint is not coming out.
At all.
Make sure you know what's going on before you put that Egyptian cotton down.
Water makes dries out a little more than silicone, right? So you need to know all of those things.
So we have a gentleman here who says, honestly, I didn't know there were medications that could prevent HIV. So show of hands, who knew that there were medications that could prevent HIV? Oh, okay, mostly 100%. So PrEP is a medication that does help to prevent HIV. PrEP stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. So before I engage in the activity, I can prevent the outcome. It is for people who are HIV negative, who are at risk of acquiring HIV through sex, and it is up to 99% effective. So when we think about PrEP in relationship to,
Oh, I didn't do the 90%.
so condoms, I was like, so when we think about condoms for anal and vaginal sex, condoms are 91% effective at preventing HIV for anal sex and about 80% effective at preventing HIV for vaginal sex. So when we think about all of the tools in our toolbox and we have something that is 99% effective, we really have to be engaging in this strategy to prevent HIV. Black people, black and brown people, tend to use PrEP significantly less than our white counterparts. We are also significantly more disproportionately impacted by HIV. So we have to engage in this strategy if we are really going to save ourselves moving forward. And the CDC recommends that for anybody who is sexually active, you should be taking PrEP.
Question.
Yes, I can see that.
Are there any known side effects?
So PrEP?
Yeah.
There are some side effects, so as with any medication, or many medications you take, there are side effects. Those side effects will vary depending on which type of PrEP you're taking, how your body reacts to that. So I think after this, we can sort of talk about some of the side effects of the PrEP medications that Gilead makes. But they're going to be different across modality and across medication.
And it varies for everybody's side effects.
Treatment as prevention. Treatment as prevention really has become the gold standard in HIV for people who are living with HIV. One of the things that kind of always bothers me, however, about this slide is people who are living with HIV don't take treatment to necessarily always prevent HIV from their partner. You take treatment, why?
For yourself.
For yourself, right? So that you can wake up the next day and do the things that God has intended you to do, or whoever it is you worship. Treatment as prevention is by proxy, right? So that is a secondary benefit. However, undetectable does equal untransmittable, which means you can't transmit through sex, correct? We know that to be Bible. The number of clinical trials have shown us that people who are living with HIV, who are having condomless sex with people who are not living with HIV, have zero risk of transmitting HIV to their HIV negative partner. And then lastly, post-exposure prophylaxis is after I'm exposed, I can get PEP. Exactly. You do need to get this within 72 hours of the exposure. So if y'all were at the Crown Plaza last night before the bathrooms got shut down,
Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Whatever happens in your world, if you are not on PrEP, if you are not on PrEP and you are not on treatment as prevention, and something does happen, you can go get PEP within 72 hours.
So,
We still got time. Go to Parkway.
I was having a conversation with someone the other day regarding this, and they actually live in Tennessee, and they actually work in the field. And I work in the field as well, in Baltimore. But he explained to me that in Tennessee, that if you actually get PEP, you're only allowed like to get it maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. Is that a thing across the board? Because I've never heard that until we had that conversation.
Yeah, some states do have those restrictions on it. And you have to think about those deep southern states as well, right? And we also have to understand what's currently going on in Tennessee. Right? Love for us in Tennessee. But I think what's really important, now Blake probably will get there, this isn't something that we want to continue to take, right? This is not a prevention plan for consistent use, right? And so it's really important that when you get that, it's not a plan B, C, D, or E.
She'll fail safe.
So when we do have these calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, that it was a oops, a ouch, you have to start the countdown, right? And once we get closer to that 72-hour time frame, and they're not on that medication, what happens? Now we have to start talking about what's that result gonna lend to afterwards, right? So I strongly encourage you all that you have a public health contact for all of your houses, right? Someone that you can call to say, hey, I have someone who needs to get on PEP right away. Where can I go? Most times, we don't know where we can go in our city and in our jurisdiction other than the hospital. You need to have a provider or a nurse practitioner that you can call to say, hey, my kid has this, and I need your support right away. All right, the same thing for PrEP. All right, get a screen, get them on PrEP right away.
And then one other thing about PEP that I want to say is, if you or any of your kids or anyone you know is accessing PEP more than once a year even, then maybe it's time to have that conversation about transitioning to PrEP. Because you get on PrEP, you don't have those anxieties around a potential exposure. So even just one time on PEP, I think warrants having that conversation with folks about, hey, maybe consider PrEP as part of your prevention methods.
So before we leave the subject of PEP, PEP as a regimen, here is 28 days of HIV medication. However, that also will change based on where you get your PEP. So some people will do 7 days and reassess. Some people will do a full 28 and reassess, or 14 and reassess.
So are we saying the frequency of the more that can get PEP is making these likely to be effective the more they use it? Is that the reasoning or thought process behind it?
I wanna make sure I understand.
So if they're doing this multiple times, coming back and trying to get the help, it's at least the effectiveness goes down. So you're just trying to track the pattern to try to correct course. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so PEP's effectiveness only starts to wane by the days that you don't get it. So if like you had something if you did something last night, today is the opportune time to do that, to get something. When you wait until Sunday, even by Saturday and Sunday, it just kind of starts to become less and less effective. So,
So I believe this is our last section. So honestly, I should ask about his HIV status, but what if he gets weird about it? Okay. Point blank, right? I mean, but it's true. Like I think there's only okay. There's just these 2 slides, but don't be shy. And when I say that, you possibly just sent a dick pic. You possibly just sent something. If you're not so shy to send that, you should not be so shy to ask about status, to ask about text, ask about preferred prevention methods. Do you use condoms? Are you on PrEP? What does that look like for you? And then that's also in those conversations that should be open and honest, where you bring in conversations about pleasure and consent. Because I don't know about you, but I mean, if I'm gonna be having sex, I wanna be sure my partner knows what I like, what I don't like, what's my safe word, you know, those kinds of things. And even if it's just a casual partner, it doesn't have to be a monogamous relationship type thing. Even casual partners, it warrants having this conversation. Because again, if I don't tell, I mean, not to be a traitor.
Very casual.
But if I don't tell Trina what I like, and she doesn't tell me what she likes, then it's probably gonna be some bland ass sex. Well, it's not because it's being Trina, but this is all part of those open and honest conversations you should be having.
But, you know, I'm happy you bring that up, right? Because I think today we're more open to have those conversations with our partners or the people that we play with around being HIV positive, being negative. What I tend to tell my clients is that we have to be more careful of the people that's always having this conversation, because what I'm learning now is that people are a lot faster to say they're on PrEP, but 9 times out of 10 they're lying about being on PrEP. So I tend to tell my clients, be more careful of the conversation that initially started. Well, I'm on PrEP. Like, are you on anything? Those are the people I tend to be scared of when that conversation starts out immediately with I'm on PrEP. So I always tell people, just be real leery of those conversations. Not to say they're lying anyway.
No, but that's a great point, because there isn't any way to really verify that, right? Because even if they showed you a bottle of PrEP, that doesn't mean they're taking it.
Right.
Even if they are living with HIV and they show you their medication, that doesn't mean they're taking it and undetectable. I mean, really, the only thing that would show that is literally a lab result from that week or something. So that's why at the beginning, like I talked about, it's on us individually to protect ourselves. You know, I never question a relationship or question somebody's, you know, sincerity in what they tell me, but anyone can easily go on their app and put that they're on PrEP or put that they're undetectable. I'm not necessarily questioning that, but it's on you to take whatever steps you need to do to protect yourself. Yes.
Hey, y'all.
Hey!
Hello?
I'm sorry I'm late.
No, you're good.
Cancel late is always good for late. What I find with PrEP, in the context of dialect, is the fact that it's used as a conversation piece in your interactive engagement and conversation section.
Yeah.
So it's put out there for you to put that, hey, I'm on PrEP, because now that opens the door for what the real situation is the fear of rejection. Yeah,
True.
I'm gonna bring that out in this group. Part of what we, you know, PrEP, when you think about prep yourself for anything you do for life. So the word is really good.
Yeah.
Because sex is life and life is living. Correct?
Yeah.
So what happens is if you prep yourself properly, nobody can deceive you by saying they're on some PrEP if you haven't properly prepped yourself for sex. There you go. So what happens is, I want to make this clear, because the dialect is there for use, it is still ultimately for you to prep yourself for any engagement that you're approaching for in life, and to do that is the proper way we approach what we do for ballroom. You prep yourself for ballroom. It's the way you prep yourself for life, and it's the way you prep things for idealistically to get the outcome that you're looking for. That's whether sexually or anything above. Is that correct? So let's keep this shit 100. Let's put the fucking cards on the table as leaders so we can have the proper conversations with our kids and let them get the information they need so they can stop fucking being deceived. And we as leaders need to stop lying to them. And we need to tell them to get their lives together and use the word prep as a powerful word that it is. Prep yourself.
I tell my kids stop being
Prepare
thirsty.
yourself. You know what I mean? Rectify yourself. Energize yourself. And penetrate. Okay.
No, you're good. I appreciate it.
Penetrate.
Right? How you doing, baby? To get started. I was preaching. I
That's the great walking.
Like antibiotics, your body sometimes becomes immune to it when you have to take a dosage of the antibiotics, right? So this, take on a long-term effect, do your body becomes immune to a different type of dosage?
For prep,
Yeah.
we have not seen in our long-term data that people become immune to prep. What we do know is that if you take it consistently, it works. I personally have been on prep for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's been the same.
That's why you were stepping that throat like that.
But, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, you were gonna elaborate.
No, I was gonna say something.
Just to elaborate on what Lane
Or the
said.
ass.
I'm Ashley, and it's y'all don't know me, work for your ass. So the reason why, we don't have any data that, to show that, but we probably won't, because you have to remember, when you're talking about antibiotics, there is some type of bacteria present. And so that's what the antibiotics are fighting. With PrEP, there's no virus present, so there's nothing for your body to become immune to, because the virus isn't there. What can happen very, very, very rarely is if you have sex with somebody whose strain of HIV is immune to the medications that are in PrEP, then you can then acquire HIV. That happens very, very, very rarely, but that's a possibility. So where like you're on PrEP, you're taking it regularly, you have the level of medication in your body, but just the person that you encountered, the strain of virus that they had, was immune to the medications in PrEP. But just in general, that's something that we're not
back to condoms.
because there's no virus that is present in your body.
And when we say very rarely, I mean, we can probably count on two
Yeah, like, I'm
hands.
talking like two,
Of, like-
less than, I know of maybe like 3 people.
I mean, millions of doses
Yeah.
and uses of PrEP, so it's extremely rare.
So you still
Based on her
need to.
comment though, but I think that's very important, but I think that's also something that a lot of providers don't have those conversations with clients that are actually on PrEP. Those are not the conversations that people have, because, 9 times out of 10, most people who are on PrEP, they still like condomless sex.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they don't, that conversation is not had that somebody who is positive that you might come in contact with, that strand might be something that can actually wind up causing you to become infected. The narrative is always promoted that, okay, if you're on PrEP, this is how you prevent catching HIV, but that part of the conversation is never had at the table. And my thing is, I've been on it for a long time myself, but being that I'm educated on it, that conversation was never given to me as well. And that's the same thing, a lot of my clients, especially my heterosexual clients, that I try to engage to actually put them on PrEP. Gay men in Baltimore, most of them jump on it. The heterosexual men, they do not believe in it because they feel like it's a gay pill. But that's probably why a lot of us as African American people really don't jump on PrEP, is because we're not fully aware. Like as people, you know what I mean, colored people, we always think everything is about a side effect, and we're scared of the side effects when half of us are doing goddamn crack, coke, and teen and everything else, and we're not worried about the side effects of those drugs, but we're more concerned about something that can actually literally save our lives in the long run, but we're scared to go tell our provider, this is what I need, but we're going to do a bump with our girlfriend that can actually kill our ass right there in the club. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I think it's about how we actually educate the people that actually sit around us within our spaces, but there's also another issue is that we don't have these conversations with each other.
That's it.
But we're sitting here and read somebody that we know that's HIV positive, versus trying to uplift them and just say, hey, does your friend know what your situation is? Or can you get her or him on prep to make sure that you're making sure him or her is okay? Those are the conversations that we don't have because within the community, especially Ballroom, it's still stigma. You know, nobody wants to run around and say like they're HIV positive because people are still reading. But the difference is even as leaders, most of us who are positive need to actually step up and state the fact of who you are and living your truth, because at the end of the day, you actually save somebody's life because it's beneficial from them knowing what you got going on instead of sitting here lying, deceiving, and sleeping with most of them. You understand what I'm saying? So it's things like this I really like. You know what I mean? I love to see that the community is here because I think it's something that's very important. And these conversations need to continue, but the issue that I have is I hate the fact that they only continue doing gay pride. So for me, that's a bigger issue for me. And with me working in the health field, it's kind of always like you see health agencies only when it's pride. You know, and the difference is pride for some people might be all their lives. So my thing is agencies, let's see you all their lives. And I think that's what will make people actually come in to care more when they see you more versus, okay, it's a meeting, we're all here, breakfast is great. You feel what I'm saying? We have to continue to do this, and that's something that, you know, like with the work that I do, like I'm trying to get them more out there, and I try to sit at the table and I try to tell them, like, yo, you gotta stop coming around just for pride because the community sees that. Right. And when community sees that, you can't make a connection with community in health because they see the disconnect because we understand at the end of the day, real talk, it's about numbers. We know that. You understand what I'm saying? But the difference is we have to get away from that concept and actually show the community that, yo, we care. And if we show that we genuinely care for the people, that's how I think we can actually slow down the transmission of HIV. We gotta really show that we care, that we're genuinely here to do the work. Like I love my job.
We got some other things, but I just want to add. So when Ashley was talking about bacteria, so what we know is that the gonorrhea strands that are going around right now, we're having some resistance to the medication, right? The gonorrhea strands are strong. So if you're consistently taking the medication for gonorrhea, you can become resistant to that medication. Just like when it's cold and flu season and everybody out here trying to get a Z-Pack, you become resistant to it because you built that immunity, right? So we really have to talk about, yes, HIV, but we have to talk about gonorrhea and chlamydia as well. They are best friends. They're always roaming around together, all right? Okay. All right, 1, 2, 3, okay.
Like what you were saying, like the whole thing with the people, like with the communities and people being in leadership roles and things like that, was like actually speaking up about their statuses and things like that. Like literally, I brought myself into Ballroom based around my status and who I am. Because the thing is, there's more people that can speak up and speak out about it. And with me, like I'm actually from Fort Worth, but I work for the Dallas AHF. So this is like this whole like healthcare field and everything. Like this is what I've been doing for like the last 6 years. And my biggest thing was like coming into a space where I never seen nobody like me standing there. I never seen nobody like me inside the testing room, in the laboratory, nobody sitting at the front desk, none of that.
Means a lot.
And then like when I tell you, me alone, coming into the AHF, like over on Cedar Springs down the street, I brought more trans women into that clinic in the last 3 months than they have ever seen. And the thing, and I would literally sit back and say, I've been positive for 12 years now. And being a part of 4 different campaigns, my photo is plastered on them, and it's like to see it and then to actually see my family, my actual biological family say, girl, why you on this poster talking about HIV? I said, why are you not actually speaking to me about HIV? Come on. Because I'm open about my status. When the last time you was tested? And they love to say, I ain't gotta worry about that. My man don't do nothing. Okay, you can sit back and say that now. You can sit back and say that now, but when you go, I said, but you do know most women are asymptomatic, right? Yeah. You will literally be sitting up and wonder why you can't get pregnant because you've been sitting on chlamydia for 15 years and didn't even know it. That hurts. So like when I see leaders who are actually in the ballroom scene who actually speak up and speak out about getting tested, getting your, like, make sure you go do what you do, go take care of yourself, like, when I literally say I've literally met so many people who literally are a part of different agencies in the ballroom scene, and it's like, there's always a connect somewhere, somehow, if they don't got it, they know who to send it to next. And like, I would say, like, especially in Dallas, it's a big appreciation, especially to see all my colored people who are all here, black and brown, and it's like,
word
just see
again.
that alone, it's like, we making a movement by ourselves.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, I came a part of this, many years ago because I came up in New York. And I came up in an era that we didn't have no community help. And I remember the time that when I came up in Brooklyn, HIV, you was dying every day. We didn't have no community, nobody to help us. And when I got a part of, my first organization I started working with was Black Lives Matter. And when I moved to Texas 30 years ago, I met Kirk Myers Hill, God bless him dead. And I started working with Bounty Prosperity. The problem that we have with our community is, the community will go to the organization for funding, to help them with their boards and everything, but they won't do the work to go with the organization to help them. They only see these organizations when they want funding. I've been in the Ballroom for 45 years. I have yet used a check for Ballroom, for a community center. I fund my own, but a lot of these families with the Ballroom, they only use these community for funding. They do not utilize their system to help their family out when they need them. They do not go back and check when they have new data coming out, they back to these kids. All they worry about is a check. And that kills me because a lot of y'all sit around and y'all don't want these organizations around. Y'all say, oh, they are headed to Ballroom. But time y'all need something, y'all be the first bitches running and knocking on their door. And that's real talk. I've been here 45 years in Ballroom. And I've watched when the community and the agencies trying to come together, it's always a problem. But God bless Kirk Myers. When we came together 12, 13 years out here, and he came and asked me, can he be a part of Ballroom? It was open arms. We worked so good together. But the community have to work with the agency. We need each other. Not just for a check to help you with your board. We need them after the board.
And with that said, I also want to shout out to J-Rock, shout out to Chris, shout out to Dion isn't here with Camp Ballroom. That's the kind of activism that you need within the ball community. Like they're taking that action to be sure that families and the community are taken care of. At least the folks that I work with here in DFW, I know that y'all have folks in your region that do the same. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Chris, I saw a hand up, right?
I think so. As we sit here and have this conversation, there's like a larger issue. So when I think about the scope of public health and needs and awareness, primarily in the space of stigma, it's how can we go from awareness to action, right? So we are aware of what's going on in our communities. We are aware of the need. We are aware of the resource. But how can we move into that action? So a lot of people can't pivot from that awareness to that action because we don't move from empathy. We don't take the opportunity to step outside of our own personal narratives. Even me being a young queer person living with HIV, that's still a level of privilege that I have, given the work that I do and the connections that I have. So sometimes, in order to understand or help organizations better, I have to step and lead with empathy to understand their struggle. And so being empathetic in your approaches is tailoring your communication, tailoring how you show up, and then to also acknowledge that the work that we do and how you do it is bi-direction, like any relationship. There's certain things that you want from an organization or you expect it to do because they're funded, either by the government or by a pharmaceutical company or through discretionary funds. But also, in order for the organization to continue to provide you services, they have numbers that they have to meet.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of times, too, we talk about there only being programs like this only do Pride. When in reality, there are programs like this that happen all the time. Nobody comes up and comes around because the only time they want to come outside is for Pride. Or to do their big one. Or to get the points at the function. But primarily, there are literally so many community-based organizations across the U.S., in Alaska and Puerto Rico, that are having innovative programming to reach people where they are. And so, like, as we have these conversations, we need to start to figure out how can we galvanize more bodies in rooms, and how can we invite more people to the space? Because a lot of people in this room are older and been for a while, right? So how can we get younger folks in the space so we can start to pass the batons so younger generations do the work? Because the people in the room are already doing the work of some sort, but the people who need this information are not here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I invited
Yeah,
you.
I definitely, I'm gonna get to everyone's hands. I wanna get through this last slide because this discussion this is what we want. So, the last thing I wanna say here, we're talking about
Invited to Kiki
resources.
Sing.
Check out these websites. AIDSview.org is a great resource, not only to find testing locations and care services in your area, but all the latest data around HIV prevalence, what PrEP use looks like in your city, in your county, in your state. All of that is available at AIDSview.org. As you were saying, taking that information, taking the latest data back to your house can be found there. PrEPlocator.org can help you to find a healthcare provider that's already familiar with PrEP. And then GLMA.org is a database of LGBTQ-friendly providers or LGBTQ affirming providers. If you are getting care and your identity is not being respected and being celebrated by that provider, fire that. Get rid of them.
Your provider works
Now,
for you.
I also recognize that comes from a point of privilege, that not everyone necessarily has that capability, but you should absolutely feel like you have a partnership with your provider, not that they're directing or telling you what to do. And these are just some questions as far as having those honest conversations with your healthcare provider. I'm not going to necessarily review them, they're in your booklet, but you should feel comfortable being open and honest about every aspect of your sexual health, about any substances or medications that you're taking, everything about your healthcare. You want to be able to talk with your providers about. And talking with partners, we've already talked a lot about that. We have to be able to talk with our partners about everything we've discussed today, about pleasure, about what our likes and dislikes are, and about consent. So again, healthysexuals.com, you can scan the QR code, you can go to the website, find all of today's information on there. But let's get back to that discussion. I saw hands up, so we'll go back here in the corner, and then we'll go next to you. Delcor.
Give me more.
I think we're fully honest. I know in the gospel world, we say that these church folks always say stuff and do something different. But in this world here, we have people that I see, they can't talk to me about sex because during the daytime it's prevention, but at nighttime you're the one giving the sex party.
Oh.
And I think that's why a lot of stick fingers will come. You can't talk to people because you're doing it yourself.
Well, so, I'm gonna say this.
But it's like you would.
As somebody who's been that girl.
Hit that throat again. Hit that
What'd you
throat
say?
again. Yes, God, that throat.
You gotta realize that people who are talking about prevention, people who are talking about treatment, people who are talking about sex as a means of public health also have sex lives, right?
Exactly.
And those sex lives can be as wild and expansive as they want to be, and it doesn't mean that their day message is any less different or divergent than their nighttime activity. So I can be on PrEP as much as I want to, and I can still go have as much wild, kinky sex as I want to have every night of the week. With as many
That's what I
different
like. So if you open up with that, with your honesty, then they'll accept what you're saying. But a lot of people not opening up with that. It's like you saying that, you're the conservative, and all of a sudden.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And in these conversations we have to approach it from a sex positive standpoint. Again, and like Blake said, we're all sexual. I mean, most are sexual. I mean, some may be asexual, which is 100% okay. But if we can speak from our own experience and our own truth, then yeah, that totally changes the conversation that you're having with someone who may be reluctant to share what it is that they're doing or their willingness to be on PrEP or whatever the situation is.
I want to take a real point because I'm going to go back to where I went back before, y'all. I started this conversation with fear of rejection. I'm going to take this story very rough. All of us. You got a group of your girlfriends, y'all get together. Y'all get ready to go out. And each group of people that you acquire in your life, they all play to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's how you build your right? So you got the cute girlfriend, she pick up the dates, and you got the other one that ain't too cute, but she got real fucking, she got real high, you know, she like, she got and y'all get ready to go out, you know what I mean? And you said, girl, what you putting on, child? Girl, I got this little blouse I got, this, you know, I'm gonna put together. Y'all get together, get it all, get it. And what happens is during our dressing process, we forget you. we forget confidence. You know what I mean? And then now that your girlfriend and y'all encourage each other to get together, y'all come out, and all of a sudden y'all out, you got to put your confidence on that. The body got to train your confidence. It's called Grey Goose. Okay? You start smoking your confidence. It's called weed. Crystal meth. All this shit to build your confidence. And what happens when all that shit kick in, and you still with your girlfriend, and you didn't put on your confidence, guess what the fuck kick in? Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection.
I want y'all to hear what the fuck I'm saying. Fear of rejection. And then guess what comes into that equation? That 99.99% of us in this room will not turn down. It's motherfucking sex. That erases fear of rejection. You just can't turn down no digging eggs. You turn down no glitter. That's why straight men don't want to get on credit. Because they want to fuck. You know what I mean? Because that decreases the fear. That decreases anything that you circumvent in the process of getting the outcome that you're looking for. How we need to approach our communities is to address this fear of rejection for conversation and stop using sex as the alternate route to defeat law. And how you do that is you build programs, Chris, and dialect that allows the fear of rejection to be conquered outside of sex, where people can accept it and say, man, dang, I felt cute today, but ain't no fucking body give me their number, and I came back from the club fucked up, but guess what? After a while, you start thinking, I'm gonna give me some motherfucking dick. That's real. No, come on, y'all, let's keep real.
Right.
That kills the rejection. It does. You're like, damn, I got two bitches, I ain't get no numbers, but then the ugly girl got the number. Then you shade your girlfriend. Then you want to your brother. There, you know what I'm talking about, bro? Like y'all sitting right here, we done been in this shit.
Uncle Mike said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I never had those problems.
But I'm speaking to this young man right here.
Uncle Mike.
And I promise you, I tell you, I don't post on Facebook. Y'all don't only post when I go out in the country. But I listen to everybody and watch y'all on Facebook. And Chris, I wanna honor you today. For the work that you do, for the courage that you have to open your motherfucking mouth and people dog. They say all kind of antic shit, but fucking keep doing that. Because every day that you say that, you are giving a person an opportunity.
That's it.
To fucking make I'm never unapproached, but anybody know me. No, I'm that dude. I work in the background. I never want to be in the forefront of anything. This is very hard for people. I know, looking in this room with you beautiful people. But I'm going to share some of the reason why I sit here today. I'm quickly not judgmental. And I want you to take this with you. God can see a black dot on a black rock on a dark night. That's the only person I know that validate me. I don't need no trophies. I don't need to be called across the stage. At the end of the day, I fucking need people that want to be on the trophies. It's not what fucking love.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the fuck I like men. I don't know why the fuck I like women. I don't know why I like trans men now. They all motherfuckers. You know, I don't have to have all the answers because we all fucking have them for each other.
That's it.
And if we can't find a way to be your brother's keeper, we're not going to be kept. And we're going to keep going and meeting our friends and pride and fucking funerals. And I'm done. And I'm here. Anybody need help?
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead, beloved.
We working on a program right now.
Hold on.
So I would like to say that a conversation that is not based. The conversation that we're not having is how we, or the question is how we connect resources.
Shit.
The answer to that is you have to build a connection. The fact of the matter is that in Ballroom, these kids are coming up and picking up Ballroom out they have. They get your connection through Ballroom, and that's not a connection. All they care about, we went to the house, you bring them over there, y'all turn on the what connection is best. These kids are literally going out here willing to risk anything, not understanding there's so much more life to live than our videos is or being judged by your opinion, right? And if we want them to take us seriously, if we want them to get this information, if we want them to get the assistance and help they need, you have to be willing to do the work and build the connection. Like with my child, it's like beyond what we do at a bar, 7 days out of the week, we on some real life shit. You know, we talking about, you know, what's your next plan for moving? What's your next career goal? Those are the type of conversations that we should be having. Outside of our, we should be encouraging these kids to think more highly of themselves. Yes, you can be a superstar, but you can't be a superstar without education. You know what I'm saying? You cannot be the next Serena Williams without guidance, you know, without experience. So the bigger thing that I think our community needs to really do is engage in connection with our youth, because at the day, I feel like that's what we're doing.
You know, I was on the phone last week with Martha and Jenny, you know. We try to get this campaign together for the Lambin Ball for October. Besides, you know, I know we deal with a lot of disease crisis and everything. It's been there for the 70s. But in today's society, we deal with, our black men, we deal with a lot of depression. We deal with a lot of cancer, colon, high blood pressure. And we're trying to deal with, like, get a campaign together now to deal with wellness check for black men. Because a lot of times we focus just on when we get sick or our dick is leaking or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's when we get focused. But our actually help to keep us going every day, we avoid that without getting our blood pressure checked, our cholesterol. You know what I'm saying? Being anemic. We look over all of that. HIV is not just the only drug, disease is killing us. Little things is killing our black society and our young people because we don't take the chance to go get a checkup every month. The little things. And we're working on something right now for the Lambin Ball of October to put together called Wellness Black Men Check.
But, and to your point, like, it leads to like a larger conversation, because you talked about the fear of rejection. And then you talked about cancer and diabetes, so I started to think about other things. So like the social determinants of health and those social drivers that impact where we live, play, work, and worship, and how we engage, and the things that we engage in. And well-being and health is so much more than physical health. It's mental health, it's behavioral health, it's social health, it's emotional health, it's financial health. The financial literacy is real, economic justice is a true thing. If I don't have a job, or if I can't access a job, and I have to get into sex work, what does that look like?
Right.
And then I know if I'm gonna get into sex work, I can get more money for having condom sex than I can for having sex with a condom. So it starts to create a domino effect due to these things that impact us in where we live, work, worship, based off our gender, based off of our culture, based off of how we look and who we choose to love. So as we start to have these conversations, we also need to start to have more other conversations too, because we can talk about HIV, we can have that awareness all day, but until we start to understand the space in which we operate in, and the systems, and how the systems play a role in our lives, and how we impact those systems, we will never see a change. But that starts with where you live. That starts with who you're voting for. The importance of voting is so real. Like, the reason why we have gaps in care when it comes to resources is because that we're not voting for the people to represent us within our local legislation, who can go to Senate and create these bills that can create opportunities for us to be seen and be valued. Like, there's this whole ban of anti-drag going on all across the United States. And so for me, even though it doesn't directly visually state ballroom, but ballroom is next. It's just an open door opportunity in the next population, right? So even having conversations about within ballroom, how can we start to get people to the polls, to vote people into office that can really activate a change for us? And not just the president, right? Your Senate, your local council, your local officials, knowing what zones and what districts you live in. These are important information that really change the narrative, you know, because we are aware, but how can you apply that action? And what I tell folks is that advocacy is different for different people. You don't have to be the person that stands up in front of people to be an advocate. You can be a person to donate. You can say, hey, don't say that. You can be a person to check on, hey, are you okay? To hold your hand, baby, I'm gonna go to the clinic with you. We're gonna go to repost or to retweet. And I feel like when you come into these spaces, and we are empowered and we receive information, you are charged to leave and do something better. Right? So before we end, I want to challenge everybody in this room to figure out what their action is.
Thank you,
because
Chris.
now you have been made aware. What is your action?
You're stealing our thunder. I was gonna make, no, you're good, no. I was gonna say that exact thing. I was gonna ask for that commitment from folks. That even if it just means going to one of your kids, one person in your house, to begin those conversations, to share something that you learned today, that's what's gonna start it. And then that person will feel then comfortable not only coming to you, but hopefully feel comfortable in then sharing that with somebody else in the house or somebody else in their network.
And I think it's also important for us to think about the structural and institutional things that we have going on. What's your house agreements? Do you have house agreements? Is physical health, mental health, is all of that incorporated in that? Right? So, and then how often are you checking in and revising those things? It's really important. Go ahead, David, would you like
So, thank you. I'm still fairly new to Ballroom. I spent a year in DMV and then now a year in Moublair. But one of the things that I've noticed that would be beneficial across some of the leaders in Ballroom is to kind of just really sit with yourself and to kind of identify what your leadership style is, right? Like, are you an example in that my kids in my house should follow what I'm doing on and off the floor? Or am I an educator in that don't do what I do, but do as I say, right? I'm going to educate you and teach you. Or am I just completely uninvolved? I'm in it and I'm not in it. You know, figure out where you are in that process because your kids, your house are watching you regardless. So it's appropriate to let them know what their expectations are in terms of what they're looking at you to give them or to offer them. You know, you don't want them looking at you as an example, and you know that you are not an example, but it doesn't mean that your opinions doesn't have value or that your experience doesn't have value. You still may be an educator, even though you aren't an example. So just, you know, as a leader, just sit with yourself and define your style and how your style would best benefit your house and your kids.
This gentleman had a general person tap there.
Right.
All right, as leaders of any house, we have to.
Can't hear you.
Talk up.
I will. Every, when I talk lower, that means you have to listen.
Okay, so you don't want this?
No, I don't, they can hear.
Like you're on the app.
You have to not be afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. We are so gung-ho on winning the next trophy. As leaders, we want to have the best team on the floor. As leaders, we want to have the best house. We want to have the tightest ship. But off the runway, the light off the runway, those members that go home, leaving the runway to a dark place, sometimes going to a dwelling that's really not suitable, sleeping on floors, but they have the most expensive clothes and garbage bags that they put on. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations, but we choose not to because we don't want to hinder what we have. So we want that prize winner out there on the floor, but we don't give a damn what goes on with their needs. So when you see, we come from a generation, myself, I won't point you people out, but y'all know what I'm talking about. We come from a generation where we were raised during the time. So y'all come up in a prep generation. Y'all come up in an era where y'all had medications to HIV. HIV lasted a long period of time. When we came up in a generation where HIV lasted for like maybe what, 3 months? You had AIDS by the time you were diagnosed. So we come up with a different generation where you was out in the club tracks or whatever, and you was partying, and then on Tuesday you was in the club, and on Sunday they were in ICU. We came up in a generation where in a period of maybe a month, your pigmentation changed drastically. Your hair thinned out and your lips turned a different color and your skin tone was ashy. We came up in a generation where when you came out the door with your girlfriend on a Friday, you might not see her on a Sunday. So there's a different connection that the older generation has. So I don't want to make it seem like it's old versus young, but you have to understand something. We have a communication and a connection with each other that y'all don't seem to have. y'all seem to just want to enjoy each other for the let out. But you gotta let people in. And leaders, when you are leading, and the younger leaders I'm speaking to, not the older ones like that, but the younger ones have to understand something. You have to, when you're sitting here and you're in a position where you are elevated by you calling yourself a father or a godfather or a mother or a godmother, you have taken on a title that innately has that type of respect attached to it, where you are above. You are a leader and you are a guidance person. You're a guidance personnel. When they see you getting high with them, having dates with them, they don't have that same respect. If y'all just sat here and had a date turn the client with each other, how are they going to take advice from you on how to get themselves checked out? So you have to have those uncomfortable conversations, no matter where, no matter what. When you see certain things changing, you know what they are, so you're not going to act ignorant. You can tell when somebody's losing a little weight, or they're starting to ail a little bit, and they're starting to have spots and rashes across their body, and they tell you, well, I got eczema, but you didn't have eczema last year. You didn't have eczema last month, but now you got eczema. When you start to see these things, you need to start having those conversations, because if you call yourself family, and this is your children and your chapter and your members, then you got to have the conversation. I work for BWC. I helped found that stuff that we say to people in the ballroom community. We have people that only come out at night, only dwell in the dark. They're who they used to hang out with all the time. They don't hang out with them anymore. They're kind of loners. Those are telltale signs of something going on. And you see it, you just choose not to talk about it because they still remember your house and they get out there on the floor. Or maybe you sell drugs. I don't know. But we have to have those conversations sometimes, because if you can bring somebody in and help somebody and direct them to places where they can get assistance and help, then you've done more than you could have by telling them what garment to wear and how to get on point. You've done more work for them by keeping them around so they can have a brighter tomorrow. I know I sound like I'm lecturing, because I am.
That's good. We just have to listen to our kids. You know, a lot of things about being parents and stuff like that.
Hold on.
I watch this generation of parents sick. A lot of y'all should not even be parents.
Oh, Pops, hold on. Well, wait, hold up. Segue into that, because y'all just took it from that to what we was going to talk about anyway, because y'all been talking about it. So
yeah,
we don't.
This is great conversation, absolutely. But I know that J-Rock also had some other like leadership.
Because I don't want y'all to have to be here all day.
So I want to just pause really quickly. Thank you all for your attention, your contributions. This is probably hands down the best healthy sexual program that I've done, because of it's all about this dialogue that we're having. So thank you all so much. I'll be out at the ball tomorrow with some swag. If you have any other questions, feel free to stop by the table. We'll be at the pool party later. I know some of y'all have a boat party, some other things going on. We'll be out all weekend, so feel free to look for me. If you need to be connected with your local CL, I can make that connection, absolutely. So thank y'all. There's still food, enjoy, but I'll turn it over back to J-Rock to keep y'all's conversation going.
And before you go, Bam said something about that I feel that we do this here in Dallas, and it's because of people like James. We don't only do this for pride. One thing that I can say about James is he comes around for just regular stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just, it could be a Tuesday, and we all get together, and he do the same things he's doing for pride. So I realized that from going region, state to state, living from different places, north, south, that here I can say thank you, James, for always stepping up and coming in for the regular. You just for regular, not only pride. You're always around. So, and then we know if we call on Trina, she gonna be up in here. You know what I'm saying? So.
Being a parent, you know, I stress this a lot. I go to a lot of meetings all over the state. Being a parent, sometimes listen to your kids. You know, sometimes we don't have an answer. My kids are here to tell you. Sometimes I say I gotta get back to you, because sometimes I don't know. Listen to your kids. Sometimes your kids come to you with something. You always talking over them. Listen to them. Because they're crying to you. Listen to your kids sometimes. That's all I gotta say.
Yep. That's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask Pops to say something. He just said it, so. Well, other than that, I would like give yourselves a round of applause for showing up. This will be on the Tens of Chops Television Network, so if you have not followed it, follow it. Subscribe. Everybody subscribe. Make sure you take something with you. There's plenty of food. We'll see you all at the 24 Karat Ball.